Hi there, Karen. Let's take a look at these essays here. Okay, this is the job cover letter. Here's what you wrote. Dear Sir, Madam, I'm writing to you in regards to the recent opening for the position of Director, Sales Department at your firm. Please find enclosed my detailed curriculum vitae along with letters of recommendation and copies of certificates received during seminars presented and attended. Okay? I would like to put forward my case for this work at your company, not only because of my 19 years experience, I would like 19 years of experience in the field of sales, but also due to the fact that I have admiration for the moral ethics exhibited by your sales department in the recent years. Okay, my time management skills combined with my perseverance, persistence, and positive attitude can be undeniably beneficial to achieve the results required, especially now that your company is planning to expand to international markets. I would also like to highlight that in my previous employment, I have faced similar challenges as your corporation is facing today, which I was able to tackle with mettle. I look forward to hearing from you regarding this extremely important opportunity for the both of us. Yours sincerely, Karen Sharma. All right, so let's talk about the good and the not so good. The good is that all of the language was lovely. It was accurate. You had nice vocabulary. You had good grammar. So no problems at all. All of those were well controlled. No real issues. What I do have a little issue with, Karen, is with your task achievement and with your coherence and cohesion. Now, from what I understand, you need a pretty high score. You need a 7.5. So let's talk about what could potentially keep you from getting that, okay? First of all, remember the conventions of letter writing. You don't know the name of the person you are writing to. It's a formal letter, therefore you have to end your letter yours faithfully. It's just one of those standard rules when we don't know the name of the person we're writing to. So this is going to look like it's what do they call this? They call this like an inconsistency in your register. Okay, so it's not accurate, so you have to be careful with that. In terms of your coherence and cohesion, I wasn't really crazy about the way you organized your paragraphs. This is actually a lovely outline for how you could organize your paragraphs. It doesn't feel like you totally took advantage of that. So, this is fine. And then what you could have done really is you could have talked about your possible qualifications. So where did you do that? You said that you had 19 years experience, right? Let's see. You said you have letters of recommendation, copies of certificates. Fine. So one thing that was missing for me was, apart from the certificates, is what about maybe your degree, maybe like what you studied, mentioning some sort of education that you've received. That for me was missing. Okay. To be totally honest with you, I have now read this particular paragraph at least 5 times, and there is something about it that leaves me not quite satisfied with the way you developed it. In other words, reading it, I can't really understand which bullet you're answering. So it kind of feels like you're talking about possible qualifications, okay? So you mentioned the 19 years experience, but then you talk about admiration, okay? So I'm like, all right, well, are we trying to talk about energy and enthusiasm? But admiring a sales department isn't the same thing as having energy and enthusiasm. So then I thought, well, then there's this, my time management skills and my perseverance and persistence and positive attitude. I'm like, well, maybe this is showing energy and enthusiasm. So I was really kind of confused. One thing that I have to say, having read this now like 6 times, I don't think this admiration for the moral ethics exhibited by your sales department, I really don't think this fits anywhere, to be honest with you. I don't think it fits. I mean, without it, it seems clearer to me that you're trying to talk about your energy and enthusiasm for your job, as well as a reason for you to be hired. So then I get it. Maybe this is, after all, this is what's been kind of confusing me. Let's see. I would now, especially now that your company is planning to expand to international markets, I didn't understand why you said that. Like, Perhaps you could have said that why, especially now, why you would be in a better position to help them. So that was missing for me. And then here you say, I have faced similar challenges as your corporation is facing today, which I was able to tackle with mettle. Now, if I were an employer reading a cover letter, I would want to know a little detail about this. So it's kind of like you're giving me bait to get me to grab onto, but you're not really giving me information. So that's another thing that you really probably should have developed a little more. Okay? So that's pretty much it about the letter. There were, like I said, grammar, vocabulary, all handled really, really, really well, but some of the way you organized your paragraph and then some of the information you include and some of the information you didn't included some of the information you didn't include. Okay, I really can't speak, I swear. That was probably the biggest problem for me. Let's take a look now at your essay. Okay, so now let's talk about the benefits and disadvantages of spending money on weddings. This is an essay that's really been confusing a lot of people because instead of talking about the benefits of spending money, they've been talking about the reasons that people spend money on weddings. Two different things. So let's see how you dealt with this, Karen. Okay, experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated over potential... have debated the potential impact of expenditures incurred during matrimonial ceremonies. Some believe such expenses are justified. Personally, I strongly disagree. You wanted a however here, okay? You have two contrasting ideas. There's got to be some sort of a linker to show this contrast. This essay will argue both sides using examples from the IMF and World Economic Forum to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, this is something I definitely don't want you to do. Not if you need a 7 and above. They don't ask you to argue both sides. I mean, you will, of course, you have to, because you have to give the benefits and the disadvantages. But they have very, very specifically asked you for your question, for your opinion. Okay? They have asked you if the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. So you really must answer this in the introduction, and I will straight away explain to you why. Okay, here are the public band descriptors for task 2. Here we look at task achievement and take a look at band 7. The second bullet says, presents a clear position throughout the response. Okay, the position is obviously your answer to the question. Okay, and look at the word here. The key word here is throughout. What do we mean by throughout? We mean from the beginning to the end. So how can your answer be clear from the beginning to the end? By making sure that you put it in your introduction. So rather than saying, I will discuss both sides or argue both sides, just tell me, do they or don't they outweigh the disadvantages? Okay? Alrighty, so on the one hand, there is ample evidence that marriages are prosperous events. That's not the right word. You don't mean it's a prosperous event. Not only for couples and their families, but also for the country's economy. The fundamental reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, because currency changes hands. No, there's something wrong here grammatically. This creates momentum within the financial sector. Secondly, such events are responsible for creating numerous employment opportunities in the labor market, which are the backbone for the socioeconomic development of any nation. For example, recent empirical research by the IMF reported that the businesses involved in weddings and associated celebrations contributed a whopping 23% of the world economy. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that such social events are are integral in promoting cultural traditions and commerce. Okay, so I don't understand why you're talking about cultural traditions, as the paragraph never dealt with that at all. Okay, the whole thing has really been focused on the economy. Let's say currency changes hands, momentum financial sector, job opportunities. So I wouldn't have said this at all about cultural traditions. You didn't discuss it in the paragraph, so why mention it here in the end of your paragraph? Okay, other than that, it's fine. I think you focused a little bit too much on economy. What you needed to talk about more is about why spending a lot of money helps. Okay, so in other words, why we have to spend, where is it? Spend a lot of money. Okay. Um, I mean, couldn't we help the economy and, continue with promoting cultural traditions if we spent less money? So, I wanted to see this idea of spending a lot of money. I want to see that kind of theme carry out throughout your paragraph. It didn't really. You just were really focusing on how, the economy is tied to weddings, and that was it. But again, you needed to think about this idea of spending a lot of money on them. Okay. On the other hand, enormous amounts of funds are exhausted during weddings, which instead can be utilized in solving existential threats such as famine, drought, and outbreak of diseases affecting the majority of the global population. Such expenditures are largely a consequence of the peer pressure faced by the gullible members of a society as they follow the lavish style of their favorite celebrities and movie stars on their big day. To illustrate this, an extensive survey performed by the World Economic Forum stated that 6 out of 10 borrowers defaulted in the repayment of their debt when the loans were approved for matrimonial service-associated celebrations. Consequently, it is possible to state beyond doubt that the most alarming drawback of such celebrations is the depletion of financial assets of families in order to live up to the expectations of the society. Okay, let's see. All right, the second part of this essay is good. I like that you said that they defaulted and that this is a disadvantage, etc., etc. This was a little problematic for me. Okay, so you're basically saying that one of the drawbacks of spending a lot of money on weddings is that that money could be spent on, I don't know, solving world hunger. Okay. And then here you give me a reason for why we're doing this, but that's not what we're really concerned with here. I think you need to go into a little more detail about this, about how this is a negative and how it's a disadvantage. And I don't know. It's like you started to explain to me why we're not saving the world from famine, but it just felt a little off to me. So, I mean, something that you could have said here is rather than talking about peer pressure, what you could have said is, for example, the average wedding in, I don't know, let's pick a random country, Singapore, costs $30,000, but this money could be given to poor children in sub-Saharan Africa and feed them for a year. Okay, so something like that would have made more sense to me. All right, the rest of the paragraph, though, was fine. Okay, from the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that the drawbacks of excessive expenditure on weddings supersedes the potential advantages, especially in the matter of financial stability of the global economy. Based on the current increase in awareness of the negative implications of these luxurious events, it is predicted that there will be a considerable reduction in monetary dissipation. I don't really care for that expression. It's too unnatural, involving these ceremonies in the years to come. Okay, so this is nicely written. You are clearly working really hard to do well. I can see that. It's all very good. There were a couple of areas where your word choice was inappropriate, like this: prosperous events, this thing about monetary dissipation. They're just not really natural expressions, so you have to be careful of those. And now that I think about it, I'm not really crazy about this either, existential threats. That's not what you mean. You don't mean existential here. So in your attempt to use higher level vocabulary, you have to be really careful that the vocabulary you're using is actually appropriate and creates collocations that exist. If you're not sure if they create actual collocations, then a wonderful thing that a lot of people do is they actually search it, they type it in a search engine and see how many hits it brings up. I know it's not exactly the most scientific thing, but it is a nice way to see if what you think creates an expression actually does. Okay, and then if you do see that it does create a lot of hits, you can see what those sites are. if they're reputable sites, if they're, sites that are by people who speak English as their native language. So it's one thing you could do. Another great option would be to have a book with advanced collocations. There are some out there. You won't find every single collocation though in there, which is why I suggest actually just, typing your expression into a search engine. Give it a try. It is a good job. You've definitely developed your answer, although as I think I already said, not all of it was really, really, really perfectly developed. There were some areas that were a little iffy. Okay, so go ahead and correct these, return them back corrected, and let's see what you have to say for us in your next set. Good luck.